If you're anything like me, your watch later list is probably overflowing. We've all got this mountain of videos and lectures we want to get through. And what's the go-to solution? Speed watching, right? But here's the question. Is jamming all that info into our brains at 2x speed actually helping us learn? Today, we're going to get into the science of what really happens when you crank up that playback speed. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been in a conversation, maybe a work meeting, and you just find yourself wishing you could speed the other person up just a little bit, like 1.5x maybe? Well, if you have, you are definitely not the only one. It's a feeling that's getting more and more common. And this quote from a Reddit user just nails it, doesn't it? It perfectly captures how our habits online start to mess with our real-world expectations. We get so used to being in control, to setting the pace of everything we consume, that the normal, messy, uneditable speed of a real conversation can start to feel, well, kind of slow. It's a really fascinating side effect of the way we live now. So, what's the rush? Why do we feel this way? That brings us right here. The need for speed. And it's not just about being impatient. Honestly, it's a pretty logical reaction to the world around us. We're basically swimming in an ocean of information, and it feels like the only way to survive is to just swim faster. I mean, just think about it. You've got YouTube tutorials, online courses, news updates, podcasts. It literally never ends. So speed watching feels like this amazing life hack. It promises to save us time. And for a lot of people, it actually helps them focus, right? It cuts out the awkward pauses and forces your brain to stay engaged, so you don't have time to get distracted. Okay, so that's the theory. But what does the science actually say? Can our brains really keep up and absorb information at double the speed? Let's take a look at what the research has found, because the answer is not what you might expect. All right, let's look at the data for understanding stuff in the moment. A big study at UCLA tested students right after they watched videos at different speeds. At normal speed, they scored a 26 out of 40. Not bad. But get this, at 1.5x and even 2x speed, they scored a 25.
That's practically the same. So it turns out our brains are actually incredible at keeping up, at least for immediate understanding. But, and this is a huge but, here's where things get interesting. When they tested those same students a week later, the story completely changed. The normal speed group, their score only dropped a couple points, but the 1.5x and 2x groups, their scores plummeted down to 21. So what does this tell us? It means we might understand it in the moment, but that knowledge is way less sticky. It just doesn't seem to make it into our long-term memory. And you know, long-term memory isn't the only thing we're giving up. There are these other hidden costs to our viewing experience, things we feel but can't always put our finger on. This is where we get into the emotional side of living life in fast forward. So let's just lay it all out. Here's the trade-off. On the one hand, the gains are obvious. You save a ton of time and it can help you stay locked in. But on the other hand, look what we're losing. Study after study shows that the faster we watch, the less satisfied we are with the experience. We also feel this thing called perceived distortion, and we actually start to think more negatively about the person speaking. We're basically trading enjoyment and human connection for raw efficiency. So what even is perceived distortion? You know that feeling when the audio gets all high-pitched and chipmunky, or the video just feels weird and choppy? That's it. It's our brain basically screaming, "Hold on, this isn't right. People don't talk like this." And that feeling of wrongness is a huge part of why we enjoy the content less. It just feels off. And that leads to another really cool idea, digital flat affect. When software speeds up a video, it has to compress the sound. And when it does that, it strips out all the little ups and downs in a person's voice, the stuff that signals emotion and passion. Without that, the speaker starts to sound flat, almost robotic. They stop being a person and become more of a data delivery machine, and it's way harder to connect with a machine. All of this stuff, it leads to a much bigger, much more important question. Beyond just one video, what is this habit actually doing to our brains in the long term? Is our obsession with speed fundamentally rewiring our ability to pay attention? Let's dig into some of the theories out there. First up is the scan and shift hypothesis. The basic idea here is that by constantly feeding our brain high-speed content, we're training it to be amazing at one specific skill, jumping from one thing to the next. We get really, really good at scanning and shifting our focus. The problem is, we might be letting the muscle for sustained, deep focus get weak. It could be making it harder to just sit down and read a book. Then there's the arousal habituation hypothesis. This theory suggests that watching stuff at high speed gives our brain a little jolt, a little rush. But like anything, we get used to it over time. It's called habituation. Our normal baseline for what feels engaging starts to shift, and pretty soon we need even faster content just to feel focused. It creates this cycle where normal-paced life can start to feel incredibly boring. So when you put those two ideas together, it makes you ask a really important question. In this whole quest to be more efficient, are we accidentally training ourselves to be less patient? Are we sacrificing the ability to think deeply just so we can consume more things faster? It's a lot to think about. Okay, I know that all sounds a little scary, but it is not all bad news, I promise. The point here isn't to say speed watching is evil. It's a tool, and like any tool, the secret is knowing when and how to use it, which brings us to the solution. It's not about being faster, it's about being smarter. So check this out. Those same UCLA researchers came up with a practical strategy to fix that long-term memory problem. It's called the twice at 2x strategy. Here's how it works. First, you watch the lecture at double speed. Then you use that time you save to do other things. And then this is the most important part. You rewatch that same lecture at double speed right before you need it, like before a test. And the result? You actually retain more than if you just watched it once at normal speed. Pretty cool, right? And this brings up a super important point about learning in general. Our gut feelings are often wrong. Researchers asked students which strategy they thought would be better. Most people said watching slow first, then fast would be way better for learning. But when you look at how they actually performed, it was basically the same. It's such a good reminder to trust the data, not just what feels right. And here's the real secret, straight from the lead researcher, Dylan Murphy. The magic isn't actually about saving time. The real benefit comes from what you do with that extra time. If you reinvest it into active studying, making flashcards, taking practice tests, that's when you really boost your learning. Speed watching isn't a shortcut to learning. It's a tool to create more time for the real work that makes knowledge stick. And that brings us full circle. Speed watching is a powerful tool, no doubt. But as we've seen, efficiency isn't everything. There's this constant trade-off between speed and experience, between just understanding something and truly connecting with it. So I'll leave you with this to think about. In our constant race to consume more, to do more, when is choosing to slow down actually the smartest move we can make? Thanks for watching.